He didn't trust me.
In terms of
He thought
other people?
He thought I was cheating on him.
Okay. And you said you broke up. When was that?
We broke up. It would have been one of the last weekends in June.
So fairly close to when the homicide occurred.
Right.
Now, that spring break, which would have been the month of March, didn't you and Jeffrey Lacoste come down to Miami?
We did.
Okay. And you stayed with your brother, Charlie?
We did.
Okay. And do you know at that time who he was dating?
I don't.
Okay. Does it sound, if I say that was when he was dating Catherine Radbanwa, is that a correct statement or you don't remember?
I don't remember.
Okay. Do you remember having dinner with Jeffrey Lacoste at a restaurant and with your brother and that Catherine Radbanwa was there?
I have a vague recollection of it.
Okay. And do you remember if this restaurant had outside seating?
We always used to go to the same restaurant, and so I know the restaurant, it has outside seating.
Okay. And when you met Catherine Radbanwa, Charlie introduced you to her as his girlfriend?
Probably.
Okay.
Definitely as someone he was seeing, right? I don't remember if he used the term girlfriend, but in a romantic kind of way.
Okay.
Not as just a friend.
And am I characterizing Mr. Charlie Adelson correctly when I say, you know, you had said he has lots of girlfriends?
I've met lots of girls over the years, which is why it's hard to remember whether I had dinner with one person versus another.
Do you know what his thoughts and beliefs are in marriage? Does he not believe in marriage?
I don't think he was so pro-marriage, no.
Do you know how many times you met Katie? We talked about the time on the beach, and then we've already now talked about dinner.
I remember vaguely those two. I don't remember any other time.
Do you remember the name of the person that was in that picture with you?
No.
Okay. Does Yindra Velasquez Mascaro sound familiar?
No.
Now, you didn't have a really close relationship with Katie, right?
No.
Okay. Did you know that Katie has 2 kids?
I did.
Remember, it's was when I don't get a first name.
Oh, I'm sorry, Judge, I apologize. Did you know that Miss McBanwa had children?
I did know that.
Okay. Did you ever discuss with Miss McBanwa the details of the divorce that you had before she even knew who your brother was?
That wouldn't be possible because I only met her with my brother.
Okay, so you didn't talk, your relationship wasn't a close relationship where you would talk to her about Dan Markel?
No.
Do you ever remember having a conversation with Miss McBanwa about Dan Markel and your divorce?
It's very possible that I brought it up, but
Nothing stands out.
No, not at all.
Now I want to talk to you about the time of the murder, okay? The day before the homicide, all right?
Okay.
You had talked about your custody situation with Dan Markel, that it was a week on, week off. Is that correct?
That's right.
And an overnight stay switch on a Wednesday.
That's my best memory.
So a better way to describe it would be, if it's your week, you have the boys, but on Wednesday night they will sleep at Dan Markel, do an overnight sleepover at Dan Markel.
Right.
And then return them to you the next day.
Or return them to school.
And then you pick them up in the evening.
Right.
So the day of the homicide, do you remember what day of the week that was?
I believe it was Friday.
Okay. So the day before would have been a Thursday.
Right.
Okay. Do you remember what you were doing that day?
I don't.
Is there any way that you would have been walking down Trescott Drive with your 2 sons the day before his murder?
No. I don't live in walking distance, so there's no reason why I would have been walking down the street. No.
You and Mr. Markel weren't on that kind of talking or speaking terms where you would be at the Trescott home and he wasn't there?
No.
Okay. You wouldn't go and take the boys for a walk on Trescott Drive?
I don't think so, no.
And as far as you knew at that time, the kids, what school were they attending?
They went to Creative Preschool.
Okay, and when you would drop the kids off at Creative Preschool, do you have to sign them in?
You do have to sign them in.
Okay, and then, so there should be a record of the days that the boys would have been at the preschool.
That's right.
What time would you drop the boys off? Do you remember? Is it an early morning thing or?
I would drop them off in the morning. I don't remember, maybe it was 8, maybe it was 9.
Oh, but nothing late, like 11.
I don't think so.
And then what would be the usual time you pick them up in the afternoon?
I think it would depend on whether I was teaching or if I had court, what I was up to, but my guess is sometime between 3 and 6, I would pick them up.
So would it be fair to say that, you know, around 11 o'clock in the morning, the boys would probably be in school on a weekday?
That would be right.
Okay. Do you know someone by the name of Whitney?
I do know Whitney.
Who is Whitney?
Whitney was a girlfriend of my brother's.
Do you know who introduced Charlie to Mr. Middleton to Whitney?
I don't.
Do you know how long they were dating?
I don't.
Do you remember when they started dating?
I don't remember when I started dating.
Okay. When did your brother buy you that TV?
I remember having the TV in the house on Aqua Ridge, so sometime after the fall of 2012. Sometime between 2012, 2013, something like that.
Do you remember making a phone call to Charlie that morning and having a conversation with him without going into the details of that conversation?
Which morning?
The morning of Danny's murder.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Judge. Mr. Markel's murder. Do you remember how long you spoke for?
I don't remember how long I spoke for.
Now, you described your brother as a talker. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think I described him as more of a joker than a talker, but he does talk.
Do you remember the circumstances under which he made that statement that the state talked about hiring a hitman, but instead I got you this TV? Who else was around when the statement was made?
Well, he tends to repeat himself, so he kept repeating that joke because he thought it was funny.
Okay, but do you remember the time frame of when that happened? Like, was this way before, you know, during the course of your divorce, or was this after?
It would have been when he bought the TV.
When he bought the TV, and that would be after the divorce.
Well, not after I filed for divorce, right? But not after the divorce was finalized. So sometime after, I really don't remember when I got the TV, but maybe sometime starting with the fall of 2012, sometime around then, but it could have been 2013.
Do you know, now your parents' apartment on South Beach, are they still living there?
No,
Okay, so they moved.
they did.
At the time, do you know how much their rent was in that apartment?
I have no idea.
You said they did not own that property.
No.
Okay. And now you said that you stayed in Tallahassee after the homicide.
I stayed for a few days.
Okay. And do you recall if Detective Isom tried to call you
After I had left,
before you left Tallahassee, but after the memorial service for Mr. Markel?
he did not call me before I left Tallahassee, no.
Did he try to call you?
He called me when I was already on the road,
Okay.
about 4 hours away from Tallahassee.
Alright. Did he ever try to talk to you again?
No.
As a prosecution? When is the first time the prosecution reached out to you to speak to you about what happened?
I don't remember ever talking with the prosecution.
Let's go to that, bro.
Procedure, Honor? Okay. Do you know if Detective Isom ever tried to reach out to your parents?
I don't think he did.
Do you know if Detective Isom ever tried to speak to your brother Charlie?
I don't think he did.
Now, you are testifying today under a state subpoena, correct?
Correct.
And that state subpoena gives you immunity for your testimony, right?
Yes.
Can you explain to the jury, since you're an attorney, what immunity is?
Immunity is freedom from prosecution.
So that means that anything you say today can't be used against you if the state decides to arrest you later on.
The state isn't going to decide to arrest me.
Do you know if they consider you a suspect?
I don't know.
Now, the life insurance policy that the state was asking you about, have you received any money from the life insurance policy from Mr. Markel?
I don't know if maybe in the beginning, the life insurance that Danny owed me about $100,000 when he died. I do think that his family made that disbursement. I don't know if they paid that through the life insurance policy, but other than that, there's been, the life insurance policy is money put away for the kids. I've never seen it.
Do you have access to that, or you have no control over
I
that?
have no control over that.
Alright, and I have, where did you say, so your boys are now down in Miami with your mother, correct?
At the moment, yes.
And you stopped letting, Danny's parent, or Mr. Markel's parents see the boys, is that correct?
2 years after Danny died, I stopped visitation.
Okay, do you have any intention of letting them see their grandchildren again?
I do. We've actually been in discussion the last few weeks.
No further questions, sir?
Redirect.
How many times have Dan's parents been able to see your boys in the last 5 years?
In the last 2 years after they died, they've been able to see them every time they've asked to see them.
Okay, what about the last 3 years?
Since 2016, they've not been permitted to see the boys.
They have not been permitted
That's right.
by you,
By me, yes.
right? And that's not through lack of trying on their part.
No, that's because of what they did.
Okay, but they want to see those boys, don't
They
they?
very much want to see the boys.
All right. And Dan Markel's sister is the, I'm not sure if it's the right word, but the executor of that trust for the boys, is that right?
I think she has fiduciary responsibility over the trust for the
All
boys.
right, thank you, that sounds right. Did you at one time hold that position in Dan's will?
Oh, before we got divorced, I probably did.
Okay, but sometime after the divorce, he changed that over to the sister.
He must have, yes.
Okay. And did you initiate proceedings to try to fight that decision that he made to make the sister the executor or the beneficiary, have the fiduciary duty for this money over you, for the disbursement to your children?
Can you repeat the, can you
Okay,
rephrase the
so
question for
did
me?
you initiate any type of proceeding at any point to try to contest or fight Dan Markel's sister being appointed as this fiduciary for the life insurance, for the boys?
I don't believe that I did.
You did not.
I don't remember doing that, no.
No further questions?
I need your other question on this one. If you do, write it down. We'll go sidebar. Ms. Adelson, I don't remember what it related to exactly. I mean, I remember you saying this, and one of the jurors had a question about, you said your memory had been refreshed about something. What did you mean by that?
So over 5 years have passed since Danny died, and, I'm
Speak
sorry,
to them.
sorry. So more than 5 years have passed since Danny died, and a lot of the things that we're talking about today, I just don't remember at all. And so to refresh my memory, to make sure that I could remember things, certain documents were shown to me, emails, legal pleadings from the case, so that I could remember what was happening at that time.
One of the jurors was a little confused with the timing. You had said you had a a boyfriend, and that it was not clear to them whether you said it was a month after your, separation and filing for divorce, or a month after it was finalized.
Sure. So I started dating someone who was a friend of mine for many years, and it didn't become romantic until after I had filed for divorce. So about a month after I filed for divorce, someone who was a friend in my life became more like a boyfriend than a friend.
Okay, what was wrong with the television that had to be repaired?
I think one of my kids might have thrown something at it, so there was a crack in the TV.
And why have Mr. Markell's parents not been allowed to see the grandchildren?
Well, they were allowed to see the grandchildren for 2 full years, and I used to cook meals for them and arrange play dates. We had sleepovers, and then I found out that that Ruth Markell had reached out to a foster care agency to try to place my children with that agency, and I became very worried that they were trying to take my children away from me. And so after that time, I didn't feel a level of trust that they could spend time with the kids. I was afraid they were trying to take them from me.
Okay, follow up, Ms. Captain.
Your reference to the foster care agency, does that have to do with an email that was sent to me from your mother-in-law?
Yes, it does.
All right, that Dan's mother.
Yes.
And that email was in reference to, in the event that you and your parents were arrested in association with this crime, could I please contact that particular agency to assist with the children in the event they have no guardian temporarily until they could get down here from where they reside in Canada? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so they were not trying to take your children unless there was an event where you were unable to care for them.
But because there's no event in which I would be unable to care for them, that feels like trying to take away my children.
Garcia.
And this email about there being possible arrests of you and your family, that came right after Catherine McMahon was arrested, right?
I don't remember exactly the timeline of that.
Okay, thank you.
Further, Ms. Captain?
No, sir.
All right, you can step down. Do we need to keep this witness any further? Anybody need her any further? McMahon?
One brief moment, Your Honor.
Hold on a second, Ms. Davis.
Under subpoena, Your Honor.
You remain under their subpoena. Right, you,
They also have a flight tonight at 7 p.m. that she returned home.
you can communicate with her about any arrangements. If you need her to come back, she's free to go at this point.
Your Honor, we'll reach out to her attorney when we.
All right, last thing I get this afternoon, it's probably not what you want to hear, but it was a little legal lesson that one of the jurors raised. They asked a question about the type of immunity that was discussed by Ms. Adelson. It's really not a fact question, it's a legal question. So this is a little legal lesson. In the state of Florida, there are 3 kinds of immunity. There's transactional immunity, there's use immunity, there's use and derivative use immunity. Transactional immunity means that some person cannot be prosecuted for an offense. Use immunity means that what the person says cannot directly be used against them. Use and derivative use immunity means that what they say cannot be used against them, nor can it be used to develop leads to gather evidence against them. The type of immunity that Ms. Adelson has received, because I have been the one that explained it to her, is use and derivative use immunity. In other words, what she says today cannot be used directly against it, nor can it be used to develop leads against her. She does not have transactional immunity. I mean, she could be prosecuted for the crimes involved, but what she said cannot be used against her, nor used for any leads to develop information. So hopefully that answers the juror's question.